At 12:41 in the morning, Claire Whitman stood across King Street in the rain, holding the notice that would end her sister's dream. Behind the glowing bakery windows, a gold-painted sign read Amber and Sage, built from family love, and Claire almost laughed because every brick of that dream had been mortared with betrayal. Rain slid down the glass like tears the building itself refused to shed. Charleston slept under a blanket of wet cobblestones and trembling street lamps, but Claire remained still, her black coat clinging to her shoulders, her fingers locked around the sealed envelope. Inside that envelope was a 30-day notice to vacate. Not a warning. Not a request. A legal blade sharpened by silence. From the sidewalk, Amber and Sage Bakery looked like a storybook miracle. Warm light spilled over polished counters. Pale pink boxes were stacked in perfect towers. A framed photograph of Amber Whitman smiled from the wall, her blonde curls shining, her hands dusted with flour, her caption promising that love, faith, and family had built every inch of the business. Claire knew better. For years earlier, she had walked into her childhood bedroom after her grandfather Arthur's funeral and found the top drawer of her dresser hanging open. The small walnut box he had given her when she was 16 sat crooked on the shelf. Empty. The gold pocket watch was gone. The one with his initials carved into the back. The one he used to let her hold when she was a little girl sitting beside him on the porch, listening to him say that time reveals what people hide. She had carried the empty box downstairs with both hands. Her mother, Marjorie, was standing at the kitchen island, stirring cream into her coffee as if nothing in the world had cracked. Her father, Richard, pretended to read a newspaper, though his eyes had not moved across the page. "Where is Granddad's watch?" Claire asked. Marjorie did not even look ashamed. She only sighed, the way she always did when Claire's pain inconvenienced her. "It was an old watch, sweetheart. Amber needed capital for the bakery lease. We sold it at auction. It brought in $18,000. Your grandfather would have wanted the family to support a real dream. A real dream." The word struck harder than a slap. Claire looked at Richard, waiting for him to stand, to apologize, to say there had been a mistake. But her father only folded the newspaper, avoiding her eyes like a coward hiding behind print and ink. Amber walked in a moment later, glowing with excitement, already talking about imported ovens, custom signage, and a grand opening on King Street. She hugged Marjorie. She kissed Richard on the cheek. Then she glanced at Claire and said, almost bored, "You never used that watch anyway." Something inside Claire went silent. She did not scream. She did not beg. She did not throw the empty walnut box against the wall, though every nerve in her body begged for the sound of breaking wood. Instead, she went upstairs, packed 2 suitcases, and left before sunset. In the doorway, Marjorie called her dramatic. Richard called her ungrateful. Amber did not call her anything at all. For 4 years, Claire became a ghost in her own family. No holiday dinners. No birthday calls. No explanations. They assumed silence meant defeat. They mistook her restraint for weakness because loud people always fear what quiet people are building. Claire built. She became director of operations at one of Charleston's most exclusive hotels. She learned how to control rooms filled with millionaires, angry guests, nervous staff, and fragile reputations. She learned that the calmest person always held the most power. Her voice softened. Her spine hardened. Her heart did not die, but it became guarded, like a locked estate behind iron gates. Then, 3 mornings before she stood in the rain, a man named Victor Hale appeared at her office. He wore a charcoal suit, carried a leather briefcase, and held the same walnut box that had once sat empty in her bedroom. Claire felt the air leave her lungs. "Miss Whitman," he said, "your grandfather expected this day." She opened the box with trembling hands, expecting to see the gold watch. Instead, she found a ring of antique brass keys and a folded property deed. The address was printed in dark legal ink. King Street, Charleston. A commercial townhouse valued at $2.8 million. Claire read the address once. Then again. Then her knees nearly weakened. It was Amber's bakery. Victor watched her carefully, his expression grave but gentle. Your grandfather left the watch where your parents could find it. He wanted to see whether they would honor his wishes or steal from you. The auction triggered an acceleration clause in the trust. The building transferred fully to you the moment that watch was sold. Claire stared at the keys. In her chest, grief and power collided so sharply she could hardly breathe. Her parents had sold her inheritance to fund Amber's dream. They had handed stolen money to a landlord they believed was faceless. They had no idea the landlord was Claire. Now, beneath the rain on King Street, Claire looked through the bakery window at the life they had built from her loss. Her hand tightened around the notice. For the first time in 4 years, she did not feel invisible. She felt inevitable. By sunrise, the rain had washed King Street clean, but it could not wash the truth from Claire Whitman's hands. The brass keys lay on her kitchen table beside the 30-day notice, catching the pale morning light like small pieces of judgment. She had not slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her mother's calm face, her father's lowered gaze, Amber's careless shrug, and the empty walnut box that had once held her grandfather's watch. Claire opened her laptop and logged into the secure property management portal Victor Hale had given her. The screen asked for 2 layers of authentication, then unfolded a history her family never expected her to see. Amber and Sage Bakery was not a thriving dream. It was bleeding. 4 months of unpaid rent sat in red numbers. Late fees stacked like bricks. Vendor complaints were attached to the account. The original lease had expired in March, and Amber had never signed a renewal. She was not protected by a long contract anymore. She was operating month to month, standing on a floor she did not know had already cracked beneath her. Claire leaned back in her chair. In hotel operations, she had learned how to read disaster before it announced itself. A business could smell successful and still be rotting underneath. Amber's bakery was exactly that. Frosting on the surface. Dead in the foundation. Her phone rang at 8:15 in the morning. Marjorie. For a moment, Claire only stared at the name. For years of silence, and now her mother appeared on the screen as if summoned by unpaid invoices. Claire answered, but said nothing. Claire, sweetheart, Marjorie breathed, coating every word with sugar. Thank God. I was afraid you would not pick up. We have missed you terribly. Claire looked at the red rent ledger on her screen. Why are you calling, Mother? A tiny pause. Then the mask shifted. It is Amber. She is in trouble. Some cold investment company is threatening her lease. They do not understand how much that bakery means to this family. Your sister has poured her whole soul into that place. Claire watched a new late fee appear in the account notes. How much does she owe? Marjorie's breath caught. That is not the point. The point is that family has to stand together. Your father and I are stretched thin right now. You have a strong salary, a stable position, wonderful credit. We need you to take out a personal loan. Just a temporary bridge. Amber will pay you back once the holiday orders come in. Claire felt no surprise. Only a cold, familiar ache. Her mother was not calling to apologize for the watch. She was calling because Claire's name still looked useful on a bank document. You want me to borrow money to pay a landlord you do not know, Claire said. To save your sister, Marjorie corrected, her voice sharpening. Do not make this ugly. She is family. Family sold Grandad's watch, Claire said softly. Silence fell. Not guilt. Not remorse. Calculation. Marjorie exhaled. Are we still punishing everyone over an old piece of metal? Claire closed her eyes. There it was. The truth, dressed in contempt. I cannot help you, she said. The line went dead without goodbye. Claire sat very still, listening to the hollow quiet of her apartment. Somewhere outside, a delivery truck groaned past. Somewhere across town, Amber was likely arranging pastries under warm lights, believing the world owed her another rescue. Then Claire's phone buzzed again. This time it was Natalie Brooks. Natalie had been Claire's closest friend since college, a woman with sharp eyes, sharper instincts, and a career in banking compliance that made dishonest people nervous. Her message contained 6 words. We need to talk. Today. Private. They met at a small coffee shop near Broad Street, tucked between a law office and an antique store. Natalie arrived in a navy blazer, carrying a slim folder that never left her hand. She did not smile. Claire, she said quietly, I flagged something yesterday. Your name came through our lending system. Claire's fingers tightened around her cup. I did not apply for a loan. I know. Natalie slid the folder across the table. Someone submitted an application for $85,000 using your personal information. Electronic signature. Old driver license scan. Requested transfer to Amber and Sage Bakery's business account. For 1 second, the room seemed to tilt. Claire opened the folder. Her name stared back from the page. Her forged signature curved neatly at the bottom. Her social security number. Her employment details. Her income. Her life, reduced to fields someone else had filled out like she was property. Who filed it? Claire asked, though her heart already knew. Natalie's face hardened. Richard Whitman. The name struck deep, but Claire did not flinch. Her father had not merely asked. He had reached into her future with both hands and tried to take what he wanted. Is the money gone? No. I froze it before approval. Officially, it is still under review. Whoever submitted it will think the bank is processing. Claire looked down at the forged signature until the letters blurred. Grief rose first. Then rage. Then something colder, cleaner, far more dangerous. Leave it pending, Claire said. Natalie studied her. You want him to believe it might work. I want him patient, Claire replied. I want him careless. Natalie leaned back, understanding dawning in her eyes. Claire had changed. The girl who once left with 2 suitcases and a broken heart was gone. In her place sat a woman who knew exactly how to let a trap close by itself. That evening, Claire emailed Victor Hale 1 sentence. Prepare the formal 30-day notice. Then she looked toward King Street from her dark apartment window, her reflection calm against the glass. They had mistaken her silence for emptiness. Now they were about to learn it had been strategy. The next morning, Claire arrived at the Palmetto Grand Hotel before 7, dressed in a charcoal suit and low heels that struck the marble floor with quiet precision. The lobby smelled of white lilies, polished wood, and expensive calm. This was the world she had built for herself after leaving the house where her pain had been treated like clutter. Here, every detail obeyed her command. Every crisis had a file, a protocol, a solution. Here, no one called her dramatic for noticing when something was stolen. By 9:30, the first wave of guests moved through the lobby. A senator's wife checked in under an alias. A tech founder requested a private breakfast room. 2 bellmen rolled luggage carts across the floor like silent ships. Claire stood near the front desk, reviewing the afternoon banquet schedule, when the glass doors opened and her past walked in without permission. Marjorie entered first, wearing a cream coat and a wounded expression already prepared for an audience. Richard followed with a leather folder crushed beneath his arm, his jaw locked, his eyes burning with the anger of a man who believed disobedience was a personal insult. Claire felt her stomach tighten, but her face did not change. Marjorie lifted her voice. Claire, sweetheart, please. We did not know where else to go. Several guests turned. Claire stepped forward quickly, placing herself between them and the center of the lobby. Keep your voice down, Mother. You are disturbing hotel guests. Richard thrust the folder toward her chest. Papers slid out and scattered across the marble. Loan documents. Guarantees. Signature lines. Her name printed again and again like a target. Pick them up and sign them, he snapped. The bank is delaying everything. Amber is going to lose the bakery if we do not get funds today. Claire looked at the pages, then at him. You forged my name once already. Marjorie gasped, not with shame, but with outrage at being exposed in public. How dare you say that here? Richard leaned closer, lowering his voice just enough to poison the air between them. You think you can turn your back on us and walk away clean? You were always cold. Always selfish. Your grandfather was weak at the end, and everyone knows you spent too much time with him. I can make people believe you pressured him. I can make them believe you took advantage of a dying old man. The words slid under Claire's skin like ice. For the first time that morning, fear touched her. Not because the accusation was true, but because lies did not need truth to cause damage. In her industry, reputation was glass. Clear, valuable, and easy to shatter. Richard saw the flicker in her eyes and smiled. Sign the papers, he whispered, and I keep quiet. Something inside Claire steadied. She looked past him toward Marcus Bell, the hotel security director, who had paused near the concierge desk. She gave one small nod. Marcus moved immediately with 2 guards. Please escort Mr. and Mrs. Whitman from the property, Claire said, her voice smooth as polished steel. They are no longer welcome here. Marjorie's face twisted. Richard's mouth opened, but Marcus was already beside him. Guests watched in stunned silence as her parents were guided out through the glass doors, Marjorie protesting, Richard throwing one last look over his shoulder sharp enough to cut stone. Claire stood still until they disappeared. Only then did she bend, gather the scattered papers, and feel her hands tremble. That night, she returned to her apartment with the city glowing beyond her windows and dread pressing against her ribs. Richard's threat was not empty. If he filed a public claim accusing her of manipulating Arthur, the hotel would have to suspend her. Reporters loved family scandal. Boards feared reputation damage. Everything she had earned could be placed under a shadow by one vicious lie. She sat at her desk and pulled the walnut box toward her. The box had once held the watch. Now it held keys, documents, and questions. Claire ran her thumb along the velvet lining, noticing for the first time that the base felt too thick. Too deliberate. Her pulse quickened. She took a letter opener from the drawer and slid the dull blade beneath the seam. The old glue cracked. The velvet lifted. Inside was a narrow hidden compartment. Claire stopped breathing. A small black USB drive rested beside a folded note written in Arthur Whitman's elegant hand. For the day they try to make you the villain. Claire pressed the note against her chest before she even understood why tears had filled her eyes. Arthur had known. Somehow, long before his death, he had seen the shape of the storm coming. She inserted the USB into her laptop. One audio file appeared. Her finger hovered over the trackpad. Then she pressed play. Static hissed. Then her grandfather's voice filled the room, steady, clear, and unmistakably alive in its authority. This is Arthur Whitman. I am of sound mind, and I am recording this statement willingly. Claire covered her mouth. Arthur spoke with the calm precision of a man leaving no room for doubt. He described Richard forging his signature to withdraw money from retirement accounts. He named dates. Banks. Amounts. He explained that Marjorie knew and protected him. He said Amber had been raised to confuse attention with love and entitlement with need. Then his voice softened. Claire asked me for nothing. Not once. She sat with me when the others waited for me to die rich. She listened when nobody else did. If Richard ever accuses her of stealing from me, let this recording answer him from my grave. Claire lowered her head as a sob finally broke loose, silent but deep. For 4 years, she had carried the wound alone. Now the dead had spoken, not to haunt her, but to defend her. She copied the file to 3 encrypted drives and sent one to Victor, one to Natalie, and one to secure cloud storage. Then she placed the original USB in a fireproof safe. Outside, Charleston glittered under a moonlit sky. Claire looked at the city and wiped the last tear from her cheek. Her father had brought a threat. Her grandfather had left a verdict. The invitation arrived the next afternoon with a subject line so sweet it almost smelled poisonous. Family reconciliation dinner. Claire stared at the email for a long moment, reading the polite sentences. Marjorie had clearly polished until they shone. She wrote about healing. She wrote about misunderstanding. She wrote about how painful it was for a mother to watch her daughters divided. Not once did she mention the stolen watch, the forged loan application, or Richard's threat in the hotel lobby. Claire accepted with one sentence. I will be there. The restaurant sat near the Savannah River, wrapped in candlelight, white tablecloths, and quiet money. It was the kind of place Marjorie used when she wanted manipulation to look like grace. Claire arrived in a black dress and a tailored coat, her hair swept back, her expression calm. Natalie walked beside her in a navy suit, carrying a leather folder beneath one arm. When the hostess opened the private dining room door, the conversation inside died instantly. Richard sat at the head of the table, looking less like a father than a man guarding a stolen throne. Marjorie rose with damp eyes and open arms. Amber remained seated, dressed in pale silk, her mouth tight with resentment. Claire, Marjorie whispered. Thank God you came. Claire did not step into the embrace. She took the chair across from Richard. Natalie sat beside her. Richard's eyes narrowed. Why is she here? Because I trust her, Claire said. The word trust landed heavily. No one at the table deserved it. For several minutes, Marjorie performed grief like theater. She spoke of family wounds, of forgiveness, of how Arthur would hate to see them fighting. Claire listened without blinking. Amber finally slammed her water glass down hard enough to rattle the silverware. You are enjoying this, are you not? Amber snapped. You finally have something over me, and now you want to ruin everything I built. Claire looked at her sister. You built it with money from a watch that was not yours. Amber's cheeks flushed. It was for the family. No, Claire said quietly. It was for you. Richard cut in before Amber could answer. Enough. He reached into his briefcase and slid a thick document across the table. The top page read Partnership and Property Resolution Agreement. Claire did not touch it. Richard leaned back, pretending confidence. We know you control the King Street property now. We hired someone to look into the holding company. Congratulations. You have had your fun. Here is the solution. You transfer ownership of the building into Amber and Sage Enterprises. In return, you receive 10% of future profits. Natalie's eyebrow lifted, but she said nothing. Marjorie placed a hand over her heart. It is generous, sweetheart. You do not know how to run a bakery. Amber does. This way, everyone wins. Claire almost admired the audacity. They were offering her a fraction of imaginary profits from a failing business in exchange for a building worth $2.8 million. Amber leaned forward. If you say no, I will tell everyone what kind of sister you really are. People love my story. They will believe me. There it was. The thread under the frosting. Claire picked up the agreement and turned a few pages, letting silence stretch until Richard's shoulders loosened. She could see hope creeping into his face. He thought she was considering it. He thought greed was a language everyone spoke because it was the only language he understood. 10% is insulting, Claire said at last. If you want me to consider transferring a prime King Street property, I want 20% equity and full access to the bakery's financial records before any signature. Amber blinked. Richard and Marjorie exchanged a quick glance of victory. Done, Richard said too fast. Claire stood. Send the ledgers by morning. Until then, the eviction clock keeps moving. She left before dessert arrived. The records came at 8 the next morning. By evening, Claire and Natalie had spread the documents across Claire's dining table like evidence from a crime scene. The truth was worse than expected. Amber was not temporarily struggling. She was drowning beneath unpaid rent, vendor debt, influencer fees, luxury packaging, and personal shopping hidden under marketing expenses. She owed the local flower supplier, the oven repair company, 2 part-time employees, and the florist who had decorated her grand opening. Natalie tapped one column with her pen. She is using the business to maintain an image, not to operate a company. Claire stared at the numbers. Amber had sold sweetness while poisoning everyone who trusted her. Then the final notice reached the bakery. Panic made Amber reckless. That night, she posted a tearful video online. Her makeup was smudged. Her voice shook beautifully. She told the camera that a heartless corporate landlord was trying to destroy a woman-owned bakery beloved by the Charleston community. She spoke of family sacrifice, small business dreams, and cruel money people who wanted to crush hope. She never said Claire's full name, but she gave enough details. A hotel director. A bitter older sister. A woman connected to the King Street property. By morning, strangers knew. Claire's inbox filled with accusations. Her phone vibrated until she turned it off. People called her greedy, jealous, soulless. At noon, the Palmetto Grand Hotel placed her on administrative leave pending review of the public controversy. The voice on the call was polite. The damage was brutal. For a few minutes after hanging up, Claire sat alone in absolute silence. The career she had spent a decade building had been pushed to the edge by a crying woman with a camera. Her hand moved toward her laptop. She wanted to defend herself. To show the documents. To release Arthur's voice. But she stopped. Not yet. A public fire consumed anything thrown into it too early. Claire knew she needed one clean strike, not a messy argument. 2 days later, Amber announced a community rescue night at the bakery. Investors, influencers, reporters, and loyal customers were invited to save a local dream. Claire read the announcement, then opened her safe. She took out Arthur's USB, the forged loan file, and the eviction order. When she stepped onto King Street that evening, the bakery windows glowed like a stage. This time, Claire was not coming to watch. She was coming to end the performance. Claire arrived at Amber and Sage Bakery just as the crowd began applauding. Through the tall front windows, she saw her sister standing beneath strings of warm lights, smiling through practiced tears while a local reporter held a microphone near her face. The bakery had been dressed like a dream fighting for survival. White roses filled glass vases. Champagne flutes sparkled on silver trays. Towers of frosted cupcakes rose behind Amber like sugary monuments to innocence. But Claire could see what no one else saw. Debt beneath the flowers. Fraud beneath the frosting. Theft beneath the applause. Victor Hale walked on her left, carrying a leather briefcase. Natalie Brooks walked on her right, holding the folder that contained the forged loan documents. Claire carried only the small black USB drive in her coat pocket, but it felt heavier than stone. A security guard stepped in front of the door. "Invitation, please." Claire looked directly at him. "I own this building." "Step aside." His confidence broke. Victor opened his briefcase and showed the property deed and court order. The guard swallowed, lowered the rope, and moved back. The room changed the moment Claire entered. Marjorie saw her first. Her face drained of color so quickly that the champagne glass in her hand trembled. Richard turned next, his jaw tightening with fury. Amber froze near the pastry display, her smile still attached to her face, but dead behind the eyes. Claire walked to the small platform where Amber had been speaking. The crowd parted without understanding why. She took the microphone before anyone could stop her. "Good evening," she said, her voice calm, clear, and steady enough to silence the room. "My name is Claire Whitman. Some of you know me from the Palmetto Grand Hotel. Some of you know me from the story my sister posted online. Tonight, you were invited here to save a beloved family bakery from a heartless landlord. That story is false. A murmur moved through the guests. Claire lifted the eviction order. Amber and Sage Bakery owes months of unpaid rent. Its lease expired. This event is not a celebration. It is an attempt to raise money from people who were not told the business is already legally losing this property. Amber rushed forward. She is lying. She has hated me for years. Richard stepped in front of her, red with rage. Do not listen to her. She manipulated a dying old man. She stole this building from her own family. Claire did not move. She reached into her pocket, removed the USB drive, and handed it to Victor. He connected it to the sound system with quiet precision. Static filled the bakery. Then Arthur Whitman's voice rose through the speakers. This is Arthur Whitman. I am of sound mind, and I am recording this statement willingly. The room went still. Arthur named Richard's forged signatures. He named the withdrawals. He named Marjorie's silence. Then his voice softened when he spoke of Claire. He said she had asked for nothing, taken nothing, and deserved protection from the people who saw family as a bank they could rob. When the recording ended, no one clapped. No one moved. Natalie stepped forward and opened the folder. She explained the attempted loan in Claire's name, the forged electronic signature, and the blocked transfer of $85,000 to Amber's business account. The investors looked at Richard as if he had turned poisonous in front of them. The influencers lowered their phones, then began deleting posts. The reporter turned her camera toward Amber, but Amber covered her face and backed away. Claire placed the final eviction order into her sister's shaking hands. You have until tomorrow morning to vacate. Anything left inside will be handled according to the court order. Amber's lips trembled. Claire, please. For one painful second, Claire saw the little girl who used to follow her through the backyard. Then she saw the woman who had smiled while wearing a dream bought with stolen memory. No, Claire said softly. Not anymore. The next morning, the locks were changed. The bakery closed. The bank escalated Richard's fraud case. Marjorie's calls went unanswered. The hotel apologized and offered Claire her position back with a promotion, but she declined. She turned the King Street building into a consulting office, placing the empty walnut box on her desk as a reminder that what was stolen did not destroy her. It revealed her power. 6 months later, Claire stood by the front window of her new company, watching sunlight fall across the same street where she once stood in the rain. She had lost the illusion of family, but gained the truth of herself. If you have ever been treated like your silence meant weakness, tell me in the comments what you would have done in Claire's place. Like this story, subscribe to Still Waters Payback, and remember this: sometimes the quiet one is not broken. She is preparing.